before Kevin and Sean accidentally find the internet went out button. Let's address some questions, and then when we're done with this, we'll see how your time is, and then whatever you guys want to talk about moving forward. Because again, nerds like to talk, and I've got a lot of things I'd love to talk to you guys about in general. And I kind of have this broken down into games. So we're going to start with Palladium Fantasy. The first one is I'm getting into Palladium Fantasy 2nd Edition for the first time. Do you have any advice for a new Palladium Fantasy role player?
My advice to anyone getting into any game is have fun with it. Explore the possibilities. Don't be afraid to try new things, and have fun with it.
Okay, specifically to your game system and your game worlds in particular, what do you think would be the best way for someone to approach Palladium Fantasy 2nd Edition and have it be the most fun for the most people? For example, as a couple of examples, should you start with just street level crime type stuff, like going from village to village, solving problems, Kwai Chang caning it all over the thing, or should you be part of, say, a formal country, or work for the king or stuff like that? Which one do you believe would be the most fun for the most people? What type of campaign?
Well, when I was running Palladium Fantasy on a regular basis, I went with the second version rather than
working
so
for the king.
Our guys were just a bunch of adventurers looking to get fame and glory and money, and they turned out to be more heroic, I think, than they even thought. They just went on adventuring. Okay. My campaign started in the northern wilderness because there's a lot of latitude there. But then it went everywhere. So, I mean, they went to Timurow and the Land of South Winds and the Florianary Islands and all over the place, and fought all kinds of things. Dungeon crawls get sort of a bad rap, but you can do them smart and fun. Our Old Ones book has a bunch of really good towns and a ton of towns and cities and adventures in there. I think there's like 5 or 6 adventures, with one being kind of a big one. That's a good place to start.
Yinslant Expeditions, when it comes out, is going to have a ton of really well updated adventures as well.
Okay. So kind of to break that down, if you're doing a Palladium Fantasy game, an easy way to go, one that you and I have both done apparently, is start off as a mercenary group, have support OCCs in your group to make nice with the people that are around. Get your name up there, get a little famous, and then organizations are going to start hiring you. Organizations like constables of a city or military is going to see you and pick you up for a special operation that increases your name even more. You start getting legendary, then you start working for higher levels, higher echelons of government, like viziers or kings even, or princes or whatever, and then your name really gets up. Then you can actually be a hero of your land. So you're growing throughout the entire campaign from a ragtag mercenary team until you get to the A team, and then once you get A team level, then you can start working for the big boys and get famous, and then you're heroes in your own right. Okay, that seems like a logical progression and easy enough to maintain.
Yep. Also, think about consequences. I am always shocked at how many people don't think about consequences. So, like, I had this one guy come up to me and tell me at a convention and say, "I don't know what to do. My game's out of control. My group is just going around like they're killing everyone. They killed the sheriff. They killed this guy. They killed the mayor. They took over the town." And I'm like, didn't the sheriff have a brother or a kid or an uncle or whatever? Want revenge? Doesn't he answer to some feudal lord who's going to send in his knights to who the fuck is messing with my town?
Yeah.
You just killed our sheriff. Was the sheriff a good guy? If he's a good guy, is your player group bad guys? there should be other heroes out to destroy them or bring them to justice. Consequences. I mean, even if you kill a bad guy, again, he's got brothers, maybe children, his best friend, who's like, vengeance shall be mine. I mean,
maybe people.
No, we're true murder hobos. When we kill someone, we kill their whole family.
Right. And even if you took out a bad guy and did everything right, again, think about consequences in the real world. You just created a vacuum in that environment.
Vacuum.
Who's going to come in to take over? And are they worse than the bad guy you just killed?
Oh, better yet. You as a gaming group, you're still at the mercenary stage. You are paid to take out a rogue mercenary group that is doing their jobs, but to do it, they burn down villages and all that stuff. You got to go and
you
take them out.
It. Right. Yeah, you send the messages.
So you're sending a message to the players. You start being murder hobos, then you're going to get a contract out on you, just like you got a contract out on them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we were just, it's funny because we were talking about that a bit on Friday night when we were talking about using IPs in games, and when people go off the plot, so to speak, with that intellectual property, where and you want to kind of constrain them to whatever the theme or that setting is. It's like, there are absolute consequences if you try to do something outside the scope. I don't care how good you are. When you murder a bunch of people, you're going to be found out. It might not be that day. You might think you're the smartest person. This is something that I've been struggling trying to explain to players so much recently. You are not that smart. Everybody will at some point, if you overdo it, get caught. That doesn't mean you can't get away with one or two, but you're ultimately not that smart, because you probably don't even realize that people are investigating things that you're not aware they're even investigating. The real world's the same thing. Well, that 1 out of every 10 doesn't get caught. That's not exactly as true as you think it is.
It depends on how many times they do the dumb thing.
Well, it depends. But ultimately, if that is your goal, I killed the town. I killed this person. I killed that person. Eventually, I killed the town. You're going to get found out. I don't care how many times you bury the bodies will get dug up. The matter is, how long are you going to last? And great, but once you're found out, if you wipe out 15 people, do you think that the entirety of the Kingsguard isn't going to come after you?
Well, and it's fantasy. Maybe there's
magic
goes and tells someone.
Yep.
Maybe, right? Like their restless spirit from being murdered.
Yep. Just seance that stuff, and they'll get a.
Maybe they just become a ghost.
A police artist sketch of you
that wants vengeance and seeks it out.
Here's a great example of a consequence that people didn't think of. In one of my original Defiler games, it was Palladium Fantasy, as I was developing the game, is they could gamble their soul away to get stuff. And at first everyone's like, oh no, my soul, no. And then the first guy who gambles, loses, and loses his soul, everyone's like, what happened? How do you feel? How does he feel? And it's like,
all right,
feels fine. There's nothing. And they're like, I'm next.
What?
So like, I have like 6 players who don't have souls, and they're going along. Everything's fine. And I think they even kind of forgot that they lost their souls. And one day they're walking through a graveyard, and I pull the 6 guys aside and I hand them new character sheets. And I say, these are your characters now. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you've been possessed by these spirits. Yep. And they're like, well, don't we get a savings throw? And I'm like, no, you're an empty husk.
Yeah, you're a vacant house. There's a squatter in you. That's all, that's all it is. You're a squatter now. Yay.
And it was awesome because they had never considered it. And after they got over the initial shock, they were great. They really tried to play those characters. They tried to get away from the rest of the group, because now these spirits are like, holy crap, I'm alive again. I want to go and do whatever. I want to get back into the world.
Yeah.
And then it was awesome because now the
characters are saying pleasure robot or no, they're not saying that.
Oh my God. Well, here we got a super chat that I think is kind of timely here. I've got it shrunk so I can read the questions. Can you read
Kevin, I love the system. Where is Heroes Unlimited on the revival schedule, and how can I get the Cyberworks book if I miss the Kickstarter campaign? 2 questions.
Well, Cyberworks,
thank you for the $5.
Will be available very soon. So we have the rest of the copies that we're getting printed coming in a few weeks. So this is already going out. We are going to have we do have some copies at GenCon. So if you're at GenCon, Definitely
them
drop by and
But the
pick it
rest
up.
of our print run is probably 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, it's
So-
what you have right now is dedicated for the people who already ordered it, and you're not
Yeah,
going to get
yes,
any more
backers
for-
Yeah, backers
Yep.
got the
Yeah.
good, got their copies first, and then
Right.
we have some that we do have quite. Well, it's a limited number that we're taking to GenCon,
So these will be made
So-
available in our store.
but they will be on our store in a few weeks, and
Okay.
we'll put a note, of course, in the weekly update.
Okay, now about Heroes Unlimited. Excuse me.
He said on our refresh schedule. I don't know what that means.
A revival
Yeah.
schedule. I don't know. I didn't know it was dead, but okay. But,
Yeah, I mean,
you-
technically, right. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
it's
not
an
dead,
update.
but yes, we
Not
have
dead,
plans for it. So our new policy is not to announce stuff until it's actually
okay. You can
Go
say
to
we
the
have
printer
generic plans for it.
Yeah,
or,
so we
or,
do
you
have
know,
and then
or in very active production, and we want to announce it to
Yeah.
there you
to,
go.
to build up hype and stuff. But it's not. Well, I'll just put it this way: we do have, just so everyone knows, if you go to the Palladium Books website, we do have a page that has our current production status for everything. That's. I think we need to switch that. Make sure that we update it. That Titan Robotics and Cyberwars
yeah.
Collection are done.
Yeah, yeah.
And that Yensloth
Yeah.
Jungles Revised
Yeah.
and Expanded is out. But yeah, I mean that is a pretty current page, so you can see kind of what we're like actively working on, what's at a boil, what's at a little slower pace, maybe in the background. So
We have no immediate plans for Heroes Unlimited. Our focus
Yeah,
right
we
now
announced
is
right now.
Riffs, Fantasy, and Beyond the Supernatural.
those are the three things that we're
Those
we're
are
actively
at the
thinking.
top of our list right now.
Well, with a follow-up based on what you just said right there, and this is something that people have said to me a bit, I would like you to confirm or deny or ignore, which is your main selling game is Riffs, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so even though I'm sitting here whining constantly about After the Bomb, as to be fair to you, Riffs is going to be what keeps the lights on.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and help
Riffs-
us grow, right?
Yep. But fantasy has been really strong. I mean, honestly, with Heroes Unlimited, historically, our top game has been Riffs. With even when we had Turtles and Robotech, Riffs was just it outsold everything.
Far and
which
away,
is
yeah.
fantastic.
And those games weren't slouch.
Knocking out the two licensed properties, Palladium Fantasy and Heroes Unlimited are number 2 and 3 bestsellers. And which one was number 2 or number 3 kind of
Flip-flopped
depends.
between the years.
They kept swapping, yeah.
And like we've talked about, I mean, a lot of it right now. When Kevin asked me to join as his business partner, we took a look at things, and it's like, well, these are the things we've announced that we are in some state of production with the art and or manuscript, and so we're getting those things
Yeah.
finished to clear the platter so that we can do things,
All kinds of new
way
things.
more
Yeah.
maneuverable and strategic with the rest of our moves.
And After the Bomb is not, that's not going to be ignored.
Well, the background, the introduction, the background should be.
The history to it can be ignored, but
what's
the game
word
itself
I'm
is
looking
great. Yes,
for? Burned. Yeah, burned. That's what I'm looking for.
but I just look at it as just another
Copy and paste the
post-apocalyptic.
old one.
Well, the old one was just shorter, but yeah. Like when I look at something like Roadhogs and Into the Yucatan and so forth, those books are like 10 pages long, and make a set, and it's mostly OCC. What's that?
Yeah.
The 48 pages.
Are they
Well,
48
yeah,
pages?
but
They don't feel.
you get the meaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
He exaggerates to clarify.
I do a lot, but and then it's like an OCC, and it's not even OCCs because it's skill based. The program based is like, oh look, I get 2 repair skills, and that's the entirety of this book. Lovely, but there is actually a really big feel. And to be fair, and I'm going to say this on the stream right now, New West, Spirit West versus Roadhogs. Roadhogs wins. Roadhogs, that Mad Maxy feel, love it. Want more Roadhogs, and I want Roadhogs to take over New West. but no, I like just as an example. There's so much space there. The good news is, as a game master, I get to fill in what I want. The bad news is really those things someday. So I'm not trying to rush you, but someday they really, really, really could use more oomph to it. Because I think the Coalition is better than the Empire of Humanity because it's better defined. The Empire of Humanity seems like a caricature. Yeah. And then those books, great animal resources in there, but now After the Bomb has most of those anyway. So I don't want to say there's no use to them, but there's little use to them other than a couple little mechanic rolls here and there.
Or if you
Not
want,
complaining. It's sign of the times.
it
but
is,
that's
it's
what-
adventure material and story material. So I mean, there is that.
For the times, yeah. I think the stuff that you guys produce right now is 10 times better.
Oh,
At
oh
least.
no.
Absolutely.
I,
Yeah.
I just I have heard from players that are like, when they discover the old After the Bomb books, they're like, these are great, like these have cool stories and this is really unique ideas.
Yes.
Really fired me up. But yeah, it's not the same as no, I mean
Stuff
I
that
really
came
feel
out-
like we're putting out with Yin Sloth and with Titan
Mhm.
Robotics. The game is upped. When Kevin was going through Yin Sloth Jungles, he and revising it and expanding it. It's pretty cool, and he was like, wow, it really has been a while, and he's upped his game too.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly. I was looking at some of that stuff, and I'm like, okay, it's cool, but it could be so much cooler. Or,
Right.
gee, I really published that. We have
my
those
God.
moments.
I still have food on the table after that garbage. Oh my God.
All right. So, did you get your Heroes Unlimited question, Heathen Dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think about it. Yeah.
So there are a lot of similar questions on here. By the way, if you answered it the last time you were here, I have no problem. You say, look, we talked about it last time. Go watch that live stream if you don't want to address it again, because I think we do have a couple of those. But are there any plans to expand the lore of Meccanoids, either in its own source book or additional supplemental information in another source book? But don't you have a huge Meccanoids? Like, as far as I'm aware, Meccanoids is all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, so one
Not
thing I would
really.
say is you do in the Cyborgs collection, you do have a nice remastered copy of Sourcebook 2
Sourcebook.
Meccanoids.
Oh, is that too? Okay.
For Riffs, it was Sourcebook 2 Meccanoids, yeah. For Riffs, which it expands on the core Meccanoids lore. Now that is an older book, but it's still definitely in print. It's still definitely beloved. What else do you want to say?
Stay tuned.
He is suspiciously
By the way, folks, just by looking at their faces, there's Meccanoid stuff coming.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I
We never said
want
that.
you guys
No,
for
I did not
money
say that.
and poker.
No.
That's what I want.
Hold me
I wanna-
responsible if it doesn't happen.
I want to sit around a poker table with you with all of your money and all of my money, because I'm going to tell you, after about 2 hours, it's going to be all of my money. You guys are bad.
Well, we might have a certain policy, but I can't help but smiling when certain things come up.
Well, it's good that you and the fans are on the same page. If this is true, hypothetically speaking, if this is true, it's that you and the fans are on the same page. And one, it shows that you feel what the fans are putting out there, and two, that you're listening. I see it all as a good thing. Are there any world books planned for Dead Rain?
Currently, there's nothing on this.
Yeah, no. Not at the moment.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
With the amount of people, because you just said a moment ago that Riffs being number one, then Heroes Unlimited Playing Fantasy kind of flip-flop and being, we'll say, the number 2 and 3, right? The amount of people that post Dead Rain on my Discord, I would think
Dead
that
Rain
would be number
one.
2.
From our small
Rain isn't
sample
a
size
slouch.
of like
Well, but
500
it's
people, Dead Rain would be far and away. You'd be living in Costa Rica having a harem and stuff if Dead Rain souls how many times I've read it on my Discord. It's crazy.
It's definitely number 4.
Did you say Costa Rica with a harem?
Yeah.
Just making sure I got that one right.
What do you want? Canada with a harem? I don't want that.
Yeah, whatever. Let's just move on.
No, Dead Rain's really popular.
Night Bane, Dead Rain.
It's funny that
I made the
people-
same comments to Kev. I'm like, how are we selling all this Dead Rain?
Yeah.
It's a good game. It's a great game.
And I agree with that comment. I think Palladium zombies are the best zombies.
Yes. I
put a ton of thought in. So what sort of this background behind Dead Rain was I had this freelancer, a fan guy, Josh Hilden, and his partner, creative partner, and they had this game that I saw him run a million times. We actually had him at a GenCon at one point, and he was running quick little demo games, and people loved this thing. And he wanted to do this book, and I'm like, awesome. And he dicked around with it for like 6 years. And that was sort of the problem. I think over that time period, he lost sight of what he wanted to do. So they turned in this manuscript that was basically everything I asked him not to do. And the dead was like a page, like 2 pages. The zombies was a 2-page description.
I'll be right back.
And when I asked him why that is, I mean, it should be the focus. Zombies are important, and we need to make them unique and interesting. It's like, well, Kev, they're just, dead, animated dead. What can you write about them? And that's like an instant challenge in my brain. It's like, well, you can write all kinds of things. How do we make this new and interesting? And I gave him a shot at rewriting the book, and he didn't want to take it. So I sat down and basically I wrote the book in my mind, what I had seen him play, 100 times. And plus, I mean, I put in, the Kevin Siembieda Palladium kind of touch where how do we make zombies different? But he had a lot of great ideas, like how the zombie moan works and how it's kind of like a dinner call. Once one zombie starts to moan, the others instantly know that it's a dinner bell. Somebody's found living, food. And then more zombies join in and they start to moan and it gets louder and louder. And it's an awesome mechanic, at least the way I did it, because it creates that sense of urgency.
Right.
Because the zombies start to gather. It's like geometric. So first you have 2 zombies, then there's 4 zombies, then there's 8 zombies, then there's 16 zombies, and now you better get your shit together and grab whatever it is you're grabbing and get the hell out of there, because next there's 32 zombies and you're in deep shit. And one of the things that I found fascinating when I was playtesting it, and I happened to have the advantage of playtesting at several small conventions that I happened to be invited to that year, is complete strangers. A lot of people talk about how in real life, it'd be like the classic. There's a great scene in one of the early Walking Dead episodes where one of the supposedly good guys trips or shoots, some guy, some new survivor they ran into, so that he falls and the zombies lunge on him and he can get away. I didn't see that in any of the games. It was like this really cool. We're like the last people for all we know. So, oh my gosh, Heathen Dog's character's in trouble. We can't let the zombies get him. And then the group is diving in and chopping off with machetes and blasting him in the head with, shotguns. And it's like, this is awesome. And I think it really captures that, and some of the mechanics in there and some of the zombie types really lend to that. So you really get this kind of fun survival game that's more than just, oh, it's a zombie, shoot it.
Did you tell them about the secret Dead Rain source book?
Secret Dead Rain source book?
Yeah, it's called System Failure.
Oh,
Interesting. I have System Failure, and man, the people keep getting on my butt about the fact that I don't have Dead Rain.
That's weird.
But I mean, seriously, that's one of those ones that I remember when I first read Systems Failure, I was like, holy crap, Kevin, this game's awesome. And he's like, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you could take from that.
You could, yes.
And directly apply it to
including
to
a bunch of the characters.
Right.
All the characters.
Yeah.
Now,
so and the factions and some of the other stuff it's just got a lot of cool stuff. So even if you don't use the monsters, right? I think it really holds up well in that vein.
I'm really proud of the zombies in it. We tried to make
it. Speaking of the zombies, the zombies see PPE, right? They sense it.
Yes.
Is that? Yeah. So I kind of like that, because when I first read that, it reminded me a little bit of Return of the Living Dead, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The really corny movie in the 80s. And when the zombies fed, for an hour or two, they were calmer. They could actually talk. And I'm like, wait a minute. PPE is life energy, basically. It's generated by a living person.
Right.
So if the zombie eats the PPE as they're burning through it to keep their body in motion, they may actually get some of their mind back.
Well, in our game, they actually regenerate a little bit, so they could look fresher rather than
all decayed and stuff. But plus, it's an explanation to keep them around longer, because if they would rot away after a certain period of time. But the PPE helps them regenerate. But in my idea, what if it also works like Night of the Living Dead, when one of the zombies, it had no legs, and it was an old zombie, came out of a grave and ate a person's brain, but then was calm and could answer questions, simple questions, but still answer questions at that time. But then an hour later, it was all ravenous and just moving to kill anything that moved. I'm like, what if I made zombies like that?
So you need to write our next source book. I mean,
well, see, and this is a great example of when you mentioned how we steal ideas. We're all sitting here going, "That sounds pretty good."
Yeah.
And you get that fan excited, and they start talking about, "Have you ever considered? I think this would be cool." And you're like, mm-hmm.
So Kevin, Sean, just so you know, I will edit that part out so he has no video evidence that he came up with that idea.
You're a dick.
Yes. So as we now know, there is a source book for Dead Rain System Failure, and you can expect one soon. TM, that includes zombies that can think. All right. They're like, no, don't say that. All right. All right. Moving on to Riffs. This one was interesting to me because I don't pay close attention to this because I'm a pencil and paper type person. I like to write my own stuff down. But it says the last official Palladium Riffs announced or automated character sheet was version 5. Understand the next 2 updates have already been submitted to you. When might we see those updates published, if at all? That's way inside baseball, more than I know. So.
Yeah, actually, it's a little bit more than I know. I wasn't. Wayne Smith tends to handle that. I wasn't even aware that we had a new updated version.
Okay.
So
I tried to convert it over to Google Docs because I don't use Excel, and that didn't work so well.
Yeah.
But all right, what books or other resources did you use for the mythology in Mystic China? It seems like there might be a ton of information available, but I don't know where to start. This is somebody who wants to do a Chinese, Asian-based theme and wants to kind of know where you... Now, just my follow-up question is, was that Eric that did that?
Yeah, so Eric is... so first of all of us, research is really important, and there's a lot more research than you might imagine. Like when we first developed Beyond the Supernatural, the main writer read like 1,000 books, and I only read like 300.
Oh, that's it.
Only. Oh, you punk.
I know what it was. So in Eric's case, he fell in love with China and the culture and the mythos, and he actually went to Michigan's U of M, the University of Michigan, to get into their library and read all kinds of stuff there. I've got a shelf of about 100 books, and half of them from Eric Wojcik.
They're really impressive. I just have to say, as someone who was a China analyst for the the military and missionary in Taiwan and stuff. I mean, these are like really, really cool, like Chinese lore and fairy tale and background books.
So yeah, just fish around and read all kinds of things. There's a gazillion books on stories. I mean, come on, China's been around for thousands of years. Yep. So.
And more than ever, we've got a lot of stuff that's been translated or released.
And there's all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, their culture, a lot of their stories, a lot of their mythos is almost like comic books. I mean, it's on like whacked out comic books where these, this guy comes down with his sword and slays 1,000 people with, 2 swishes. And, there's a lot of great material there. I don't know where to tell you how to start other than just start buying or going to the library and researching online and just check it out. There's all kinds of shit. The reason there's no China 3, because there was supposed to be China 3, which really focused on magic, is Eric barely just started it before he passed away. And he had all kinds of amazing ideas for it. He shared a bunch of things with me. And
do we have his notes?
Very few.
We have his notes. No, he was buried with them. Do you have a shovel?
Well, a lot of it was, one of the things of Wojcik is he was always working on like 30 different projects at once. So, you were lucky to get something out of him every 5 years because he had 30, 40 different things going on in his head, which never got finished.
There's stuff I can't tell you about, but you would blow your mind if you saw what I've seen that Kevin just pulls out of.
Pulled off a shelf.
I can't even tell him about it. But it's like, yeah, like when I ask him that, it's a serious question. No, I mean, I as someone who's a big fan, There's the Red Cliff movies from China. There's which is part of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms saga, which is like their version of King Arthur and Robin Hood, and all this stuff, all the 100 Years' War, all put into one. But yeah, that's some of the stuff I threw out there. As
and that's a great
buff.
point. Is don't just limit yourself to books. I mean, watch the movies.
And those things are in book format.
And that'll give you ideas of what to track down and do more research on. And
right.
I mean, same thing with Dead Rain. I sat back, even though I was kind of a zombie fan already, and had seen a million movies, and had actually met George Romero. I went back and watched like 30 freaking zombie movies and TV shows and all kinds of shit just to get back into that feel, and how can I take this mythos and these many ideas and make it something unique. And that's what you want to do, whether you're writing a book on zombies or China or whatever.
For me, if it would be two different paths I would take. If you're playing Chinese characters in China in Riffs, I would read books that are just Chinese, or watch movies that are just Chinese. And there's plenty of those even in English that are really good. But if you're playing from another system, North America, Europe, Africa, whatever, and you're moving to China as the scene, but you are not Chinese yourself, my favorite book on that whole man out of place type thing is Shogun. It's a huge book. It's like 1 billion pages. I don't even know. I read it.
Yeah, watch the miniseries.
Yeah, you watch miniseries. There you go. Yeah, but the book Shogun, where there is the British pilot Blackthorn, it lives in Japan. Now this is Japan, but it's the same thing, where the idea of he slowly gets acclimated and accepted into society, and it gives the game master goalposts, to acclimate your characters into Japan or Mystic China for your role-playing game. They have to hit this level of popularity, this level of understanding, and then they can move on and get more responsibility, become trusted, stuff like that. And that's really the only thing as a game master, when you're doing a book, you can actually prepare your game for the player's actions, because you don't know what they're going to do, turn left, turn right. But if they want to ingratiate themselves in society, there's a path they have to take. They have to be nice people. They have to be kind. And if you do this, do that, then the goalpost moves again, and now you're higher level and you go here, until at the end you are a personal retainer of the Shogun, or whatever the equivalent is for Mystic China, stuff like that. So you can make the road path with these tools as your guide. If you understand how the people think and what they do, why they do it, then you can understand how your players can acclimate themselves in this environment, or what they have to do to get ahead, to save face, to gain fame, but not too much fame, because in some societies, if you stand out too much from the crowd, you're considered a rabble rouser no matter what, stuff like that. It's all the whole, Southeastern Asian society type thing that you have to wrap your head around.
Even Doug's writing the entire book right here.
God damn it, you're right. I'm gonna stop. No, I'm giving. Yeah.
I'll throw out one more thing. I think that's a good suggestion, though. But the other thing I'll throw out is, if you want like Chinese themed characters and storylines and reminiscent type stuff, Three Kingdoms, Romance of Three Kingdoms, really good.
Yes.
But the other thing I would say is also Journey to the West. So, which also inspired like Dragon Ball Z.
Right, Dragon Ball Z. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Journey to the West. It's a really, really old Chinese fable. Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of build on what you said, Heathen Dog, which is, when you're writing a game, so research is part of it. So you have to take in all this information to get a feel for the culture and the magic and blah, blah, blah. But as a game designer, you now have to think about, what do you want to present? What parts of that world and that culture do you want to present? As Heathen Dog was saying, how do you present it? And who and what are your player characters? Yes, and what is their goal? What is their mission? We recently had an excellent writer turn in a manuscript that I can't tell you about. But when we were talking to him about it, he had all these great ideas and had a really good idea for the world. And he had a nice, good world overview. And Sean and I both went,
What are the players?
but what do I do as a player?
Mm.
And he would talk more about the world, and we're like,
That's great. How do they fit in the world? How
bingo.
do the players interact with the world in a way that not only makes sense, but is also, I don't know, fun?
Exactly. That's exactly
Or
right.
a story.
Well, it's funny you say that because I have a super chat I have to read here because it's $30, but we'll get to that in a moment because it's going to segue us. Because when we were going over like Africa and one of the other books, I forget what it was, people are like, man, when Kevin does these we'll call it non-American, non-Western, Western European settings, they're really generalized and they're really vague. And man, there's so much more he could have done with it. And my response was like, dude, do you know how much research it takes to get that right? I don't think he got
for the internet.
right. And you know, so, but he did such a good job with China. And then I was the one that mentioned, said, well, I think that was more Eric than Kevin. I might be wrong on that, but Kevin was the Asian expert, if I remember correctly. He even lived there.
Eric,
Right. So like, yeah, he they're good friends. You know, that was luck on his part. He doesn't have somebody who lives in the middle of Africa, whose family was raised there, whatever, that he can fall back on. So he has to do it all through his own research. So things are going to be more vague. But then here's my second part, and then go beat me with both of them. Is if you remember the old Dungeons and Dragons Oriental Adventures, it wasn't Japan, it wasn't China. Wasn't Mongolia, the Philippines, or anything. It was a conglomerate because, you know, Karatur, right? But it combined all of those. And right, it didn't meet the Earth mindset of like, well, that didn't actually happen over there in Japan. But as you were saying, you know what it did do? It allowed you to play that Hong Kong flick you wanted to play. It allowed you to play that ninja movie you wanted to play. It turned the tropes, which are bad nowadays, into a game that could be fun for the players, even if it didn't exactly meet, like my wife is Japanese. Like, oh, well, in Japan, we wouldn't have done that. Now, she doesn't care. But the point is, like, nobody's worried about that correction because we wanted to play a game that was fun. So how much that the two being, look, there's a lot of history you have to get into, and is the time worth the result, and then the generality versus the specificity of it, if you want to.
Okay, so basically your question is, when do you stop digging?
Well, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted them to address both aspects of it. But yeah,
I have enough lore. This is enough. I don't need to go any deeper.
Well, and how much does your target audience know? Yeah. So I think one of the things that I'll say that Kevin probably has really great answers, but I think a lot of people dog on stuff because it's easy to look it up on Wikipedia now, which isn't as reliable as it used to be as an information source, by the way. But, you know, when I got Ninjas and Super Spies, when I got, New West and Spirit West, when I got Africa, back then there wasn't the internet. I was learning a lot of stuff I'd never even heard of before. I'd never seen before. I learned a lot about Japan from the Riffs World Book. And I think that the books actually do a really good job of kind of introducing you to like the general history. And then this is how it's changed in the apocalypse.
Kind of captures the spirit of it.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and it gives you, it's a basic primer for an audience that is going to be, back then, would be unfamiliar with it and couldn't just go look it up on the internet. You'd have to literally go to a huge library, like in the downtown metropolitan area, to be able to read about these things. I know that people forget about that, but these books were literally a product of their time and aimed for users at that time. So I think that they get a lot of flack when I think it's really kind of horseshit from a bunch of people who've never written anything, but also they, it provided some things that were really necessary for consumers back then. And then a lot of this stuff, we've actually gotten a lot of people saying that from those different cultures or groups that say that they're like, wow, maybe I would have done this a little different, or obviously this is fiction or a fantasy version, but they really liked it and they really appreciated the approach, which is so funny because we have a bunch of people that maybe aren't from those areas or don't know those cultures or aren't experts on those cultures who start dogging on stuff. Yeah. And I just think it's like, well, it's funny when you come out here and say that, but you really don't know that much.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, a lot of times I also leave it. So this sort of a two-part answer to your why is it vague. One is my general philosophy of I'm going to give you enough to work with, and you can take it wherever you want. Because I really feel like the game master and the players, it's your game. Make it what you want it to be. Focus on what you want. Do more research and focus on this, or go in that direction or this direction. I'm just laying you out the basics so you can take it from there. And so that's a lot of times why it's vague. And then the other thing is, again, sort of what is the story I'm trying to tell? Like in the case of Africa, I couldn't find a ton of good research at the time when we were writing it. Plus, the real focus on that book, even though in Heathen Dog we can go, aha, I told you it's not a world book. We were focused more on the adventure element of, this cataclysmic four horsemen of the apocalypse. That was the main story that we ran with, as opposed to filling out what that world was. I have that same, ironically, Africa doesn't bother me so much as Seascape, which is a great book, sold gazillions of them. People love it. There's nothing about Seascape in there. I mean, there is a little bit, but I mean, you don't see Seascape. You don't go to Seascape. Why the fuck is it called Seascape? But I mean,
Kevin, there's a mist you have to travel through to get to Seascape.
There you go.
Well, no. I that the first answer especially, I absolutely love that answer, because one of the things, again, in the '90s, I don't know why. Maybe it was people I was around. Maybe it's just me growing up, but I really was becoming simulationist, and I could picture myself in the '90s being that, well, actually, guy, as you dive into these things. But now you do, and I word it a little differently, but I again love the answer, because provide the framework. So we know the sandbox we're playing. We got the frame. We know how to handle things, the foundation, so to speak, and then from there build what you want. And I'm a huge fan now of frameworks. Like when it comes to games, just give me the framework for the game that I need. The bare minimum rules I need to run this thing and make decisions when somebody goes outside scope a little, so to speak. And that's what I think those world books provide.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit of an antiquated approach, because I think because of video games and card games and the proliferation of board games, all of which is good and great and wonderful, they're so specific that people, including role players, they want everything spelled out for them.
Ugh. Yeah, I think that's a problem. That's not a feature. That's a bug.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I'm old school where, you took that and you created your own adventures. I don't think I ever bought, just personally, an adventure book for any game, because I would take the basic foundation and then build on it and take it where I wanted to go. And I understand that a lot of people need those adventures, and adventures help build the world. And if you do them right, they can be just as exciting as a world book. But I think the idea of, I'll just take this and spin on it, or, oh, there's a big hole in this story, I'll fill it with this. That's not as prevalent as it was even 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to get this super chat because it's one of the high dollar ones. So, says, how will you view PDFs going forward? With printing being so expensive, would it be financially viable to prioritize PDFs first? What about books plus PDF bundles? That question came up about 50 times. So I guess you're getting it earlier than I was going to ask. It was the books plus PDF. And I do know we asked that last time, but when I said that to folks, they're like, yeah, but we want to see if there's an updated status on that idea.
Yeah, no, there is. You mind if I?
Yeah,
okay.
Cool.
So, how do we view the PDFs? We view them on computer screens now. We no.
And mobile platforms.
Yeah. You can even print them out. No. So this is one of those things. I mean, we're trying to do a lot at once and prioritize very carefully. But like the remastered PDFs, we see PDFs as very important, making sure that we can offer the best experience possible with our PDFs moving forward, right? Because you can't just in one fell swoop change all of the past 40 years. And it's a lot of work. I think we talked about this, but for the Cyberworks collection, for instance, we had to send the high res scans that we had of Sourcebook 2 Meccanoids to a company that specializes in digitizing basically and giving you the text of archival books, and they sent that back. It was useful. I could have been a little better. We'll try another service next time.
Yeah.
But and then I went through and basically rebuilt the whole book from scratch because there was no digital version. There were just these scanned versions. That's why it was like that before. So it is a lot of work to bring those other ones back. But we think it can be worth it. And that's, again, one of the great things about we want to do with Kickstarters going forward is bring as many synergies as we can together with making remastered versions of things, which we can then put into a print collection and stuff like that. The other thing is we're really close. There's been so many different things and we've only got so many hours in the day, but we're really close to launching our new Palladium Books web store. And one of the great things about that is that it is going to have, right now, our current software is built for a certain merchant platform that we just can't do it. But we will be offering PDFs through the Palladium Books web store, as well as drive-through. And then with that, one of the big things we're excited about is providing bundles where possible. Now the big thing is right now PDFs are nice, but they do not drive our business. Physical books is our bread and butter. Some of this is about perception of value, because a lot of people wouldn't pay nearly as much for a PDF. And that adds up quick. When it comes down to like the Titan Robotics Kickstarter, we made the bulk of our money on print. Even though we had a lot of people that just got in on the PDF levels. And now there were really good values. If you jumped in on that Kickstarter, you got the all the collector's edition stuff,
cards,
but you got it all cheaper than you're going to be able to get it at retail. And you basically, in most cases, got the PDF for free if you were buying the physical book. So you got a discount on the physical book and you got the PDF for free, or you got a great deal on the PDFs if you got one of the PDF bundles. But yeah, it's a weird thing. We're trying to kind of straddle that line. But right now, I mean, for Palladium Books, we're Palladium Books, and I guess that kind of works because we're focused on books, so we're going to stay focused on books. But we are doing everything we can to maximize the viability and the quality of our PDF offerings, and then bundle them together with the rest of the stuff, so that you can save a few bucks when you get both products at once.
What do you think about some of these companies, whether they're a Kickstarter or there's definitely a big one who's starting to do this, that are like, we are no longer going to do physical product. It's just going to be PDFs or online services.
If that works for them, great. Like Sean said, we're Palladium Books. We love books. We like physical books. And for at least the foreseeable future, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Things can change.
We also have a warehouse. If we got rid of books, we would need to get rid of the warehouse and half our staff. That'd be kind of cool. So,
I mean, like for me, only time I use PDFs are on our show. I hate PDFs. Like, I don't like them at work. I don't like them at home. I don't like them anywhere. Maybe a quick lookup. But other than that, I want that physical. I want this monster in my hands.
He will not read them, Sam. I am.
Yeah. I mean, one of the great things about PDFs is you can search them. So as a game designer, I use them all the time, right? Because I can have them up on multiple screens, and it's way easier to access than having, all of the books sitting in a giant pile on a shelf next to me. But I've tried. And I had 20 plus books that went into Empires of Humanity for Savage Riffs. So even though I owned all the books.
Interesting name.
Yeah, right. Fitting. But anyways, yeah, so I mean, no, but PDFs are important, and we want to continue to support that. But yeah, I know some companies are going in a direction that's more of a weird new hybrid thing. And that's cool for them, but we plan on supporting
both.
Yeah, both as much as we can, but the traditional approach.
To be a little bit more specific about one of the questions that was going to come up later, then we can just drop the whole PDF thing. Sure. If in this new Palladium store, if I buy, say, Titan Robotics, will I get the PDF with it, even if I have to click a button that adds it to it? Like drive through, you can get the book, the PDF and the book, or just the PDF, whatever. Is that going to be an intended option?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't worked out the details on that exactly, but and it's weird, like, the different e-commerce setups and different. So I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like because it depends on a bunch of different add-ons. But yeah, the intent is that once the PDF is available, that you should be able to buy it together. But for instance, right now, one thing that's working really well is making the PDFs something that's, you can get early access to it by being part of the crowdfunding, or you can wait for the general PDF release, which is going to be staggered from the physical print books.
And I lied to you. I apologize, but I forgot something. First edition PDFs, are those in the works? Any plans for those?
No.
Well, I mean, some are already available.
Besides what's already available.
Okay.
I think most first edition books are available as PDFs.
Okay.
There's a couple that might not be. I think like Monsters and Animals isn't, and I think there's one other, but pretty much everything else already is.
But if they're asking for like the new revised, revamped, remastered type approach, I mean, I don't know if that's really, we can't prioritize that over new books.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I just put it out there because I know actually the person's watching right now who had that.
No, we don't want to lie.
Good.
We're trying to give honest, straightforward answers. Yeah, but I mean, if you really for the first edition type or the older edition type stuffs, that's why we made it available as collectors items, right? Like the Beyond the Supernatural first edition or Palladium Fantasy first edition. You've got those foil hardcovers, so you can still get those.
All right. Hold on. You know what? I'll sneak this one in because his super chat, Rumble rant. To Kevin, is there a secret stash of the leather foil books for Lemuria? It's literally the most attractive foil books cover, and I regret not grabbing it at GenCon I went to.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is that much like some of the stuff in Titan Robotics, we had done like what we called our insider crowdfunding thing that we did directly through Palladium. So those are very limited number, and unfortunately, there's not a secret stash.
Right.
I mean, I have like 2 or 3 of them, but other than that,
it's just personal copies,
gone.
right?
Yeah.
No, I mean that's the thing when we do these limited edition, like we're not kidding. Get them now while it's hot,
So we'll move on to the Rifter. Got some people are concerned about Rifter number 86. Apparently, it's been a year since the last one or something, and they're like, "Oh my God, has this been canceled again?" So, is there any ETA on the Rifter 86?
We don't have a direct ETA on it right now.
No, hopefully by the end of this year.
Might be early next week.
It's we went through so much stuff with the Kickstarter and shipping overseas. And
did you guys know about our server meltdown we had?
Printer and,
oh my gosh, it was like 3 weeks of server hell. I mean, there's all types of weird stuff that's come up this year.
Yeah.
But no, the Rifter, we're still definitely aiming. We want to make sure that's an annual thing. So
we got tons of submissions
and things we want to include. So.
A lot of them look really good. So no, it's not that. It's just insanely late.
Okay. Well, you know what? We
never promised anything for the Rifter.
Yeah.
We never promised anything specific for the Rifter. We do want to do it annually.
Yeah.
And that's still our goal. But yeah, it's well, with the last one, when it went to print and came out just in time for the open house.
Yeah.
So we're only a few months behind that right now. So just give us some time. We're working on it.
All right. This is a two-parter. There are really 2 different questions here, but I'm going to mash it into one. How do you select which suggestions make it into the Rifter or even a line book? And beyond what is stated in your submission guidelines for Rifter, is there any advice you would give?
I can answer that second question first, I think. So could you? Shorter submissions, like a lot of people turn in these big, 30, 40, 50, 60 page things. And that's a lot.
Especially if you haven't been printed before.
Yeah.
And you may have issues that we need to tell you about.
So, a 10 to 20 page submission is great. Even a 4 or 5 or 6 page submission is great. Because Riffs is our most popular game, 70% of submissions are Riffs.
And only maybe 25-30% of the stuff in the Rifter is Riffs.
So we want to make it more than that. We don't want to make it just the Rifter is just Riffs. So
if I'm going to start writing some after the bomb.
Exactly. So if you write something after the bomb,
write a better backstory.
If you have an idea for zombies that wake up from PPE consumption, maybe that should start as a Rifter article. And then once you see that in print, we give you some feedback. You could build it into a 48-page source book.
Yay.
I like that. Or it's just a 4-page thing that appears in the Rifter, and people go, "Wow, that's neat."
That was really cool. Yeah.
So I think focusing on some of the other game lines rather than Riffs, and in fantasy is the one we get the next most. So if you focus on things other than Riffs and fantasy, you're more likely to get into an issue, because
we're trying to make sure we have a wide variety of stuff available. And so like when I was putting Rifter 85 together, I only had a few submissions. And sometimes there's like, I see this and I'm like, this is not print qual. I can't. This is take forever. I'd have to rewrite the whole thing. It's not happening. So those just quickly get put in a bin. Yeah. But from that, I might have like, I've only got 1 or 2 choices if I want to do Palladium. Heroes Unlimited or whatever. So that definitely comes into consideration. And it's are you duking it out with maybe some really great writers or even established writers have already printed a book, but they Will Irwin wrote some really great articles on the Glitter Boy stuff for Riffs. I mean, that was going to go in Rifter 85 because it was so high quality, right? So.
I mean, there are still design and editorial standards you have to maintain, and the book can only be so big. I get all that, but
you want it to be good and hard hitting, and
it's actually one of the few things that I look back at in like my Palladium collection that I'm a firm, kind of like Kevin, you said a little bit ago about you didn't buy adventures and so forth. And I buy very few of those as well because I like to do my own thing. But I also never back in the day bought the Rifter. One, because it said Rifter. And let's just say my animosity towards Rifts was greater than my love of the other games. I've since converted on that one. But also, like, I don't need that stuff. I want to make something new. I'll do it on my own. Well, I look back at it now. It's like, man, I wish I would have had a bunch of those, because in some of the articles that I've read and some of the ideas that have come across, like, you know what? I was trying to figure out a way of how to do that 20 years ago. It's a little late now.
Sometimes some people will write these big mechanical treatises on new rules and all this other jazz. But like some of the great stuff to write that can be just really fun as a writer, we had Dead Rain vehicle loot tables for Rifter 85. We had a bunch of Palladium fantasy, but it also could be used with anything else. Magic items.
Yeah.
One
article I think in Rifter 84 was like treasures across the Megaverse, and it was all kinds of different cool magic items and weird shit, and there's a ton of great stuff in the Rifter. The various issues of Rifter. It really is a great resource for ideas that you can take and build on. And
it's kind of funny, people that start getting the Rifter, you can tell, because then they'll order more and more, the whole pile, and so it's like it's a really great resource that is very untapped.
And while a lot of the Rifters are out of print, I do want to mention that they are all available as PDFs
on Drive-Thru RPG right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Too bad Lulu won't let me print them out. That's a different story. But to be fair, like I never collected them, but of course I have the collection. There's a CD collection put out 20 or so years ago of the 250 Dragon magazines, or was it Dungeon, whichever one it was. I've read through certain Dungeon magazines. I've never really felt inspired by them. Okay, some neat ideas. I've read through a few Rifters now, and I'm like, this is night and day difference. Again, not saying this because Kevin's here. I'm saying this because it is night and day difference. The information provided is very similar to what you'd find in a Dragon magazine, but I would actually say it's more relevant. even if you don't use it, it's more relevant, more food for thought than some 1970s dude writing in language we don't use anymore, trying to read 10 paragraphs to get the one sentence of of nugget out of that. Yeah.
Right.
High Gygaxian, so to speak. But yeah. So I've been I don't want to admit how impressed that I've been with what I've read through the various Rifters I've looked through. So,
well, I just want to point out too that a lot of that is fans sending stuff in.
Right.
It's not, and yes, some of it's professional. I've written some stuff and other people, but most of it is just contributions from fans that are like, oh, here's a nice little gem. And that's what we try to do when we review those manuscripts when they come in, those submissions. We're looking for those gems where it's like, oh, clever idea. Oh, never thought about that. I wouldn't play this, but you know what? I think a lot of other people might. Let's put it in. Oh, here's a cool home rule that I won't play, but
Someone
I can
else
see a lot
might
of
be their
other
bread and
people
butter,
loving
yeah.
it. So, and of course adventures, and it's a great little resource.